Welcome back to Chronically Authentic, the podcast, where we talk to you about stuff. Oh, for once, I wasn't the sipper. Hold on. We can correct this action.
Real life shit.
Real life stuff. So there's been a lot of talk about Mother this week, and I want to talk about it. So I'm sure you've heard about what happened with Jo Koy's monologue and
Who?
Taylor Swift. Precisely. We're gonna get to that. About his monologue at the Golden Globes, where I honestly haven't seen the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So give me a moment to catch up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna play it. One sec.
The big difference between the Golden Globes and the NFL, on the Golden Globes, we have fewer camera shots of Taylor Swift. I swear. There's just more to go to. Sorry about that.
Her face.
Bro, the death glare that man got. Okay, first of all, we all know what this means, right?
What?
We're going to get a song out of that.
A whole song out of that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. We already did. It's called The Man.
Why is everyone so upset about that to begin with?
Well, as a newborn Swiftie, maybe you are just unaware of the brutality that woman has gone through. No matter what she does or how much she has proven time and time again that she is the top of the top, people always have to find a way to stay relevant. And that's exactly what Jo Koy did. And how many people heard that name circulating this week and were like, who? Because that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
And I also read an article this past week about how news stations, blogs, podcasters, everyone is talking about Taylor Swift because it's hot. It's trending to talk about Taylor right now because people are just wanting to pull clout from her to get relevant. And what? Why can't a woman just be? Why does everyone have to ride on her curtails?
So you're saying Jo Koy made that joke not as like a dig to the NFL or a dig to the Golden Globes. It was like really coming after Taylor in order to keep himself relevant or make himself relevant?
How many of you listening to this, watching this, you sitting next to me, knew who Jo Koy was before right now?
Yeah, that's a good point, I guess.
Or before this whole incident happened?
Yeah.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
It helps to use like the number one pop star of all time, I guess, to make a joke about.
Yeah.
But if you're going to make a joke about anybody, you got to be careful about making one about Taylor because of this reason and because of her fans.
Yeah. I think that if you are unfamiliar with Taylor's background and her story, she has been bullied her whole life. Someone always has something to say about what she's doing. And as a woman who has also grown up being bullied or poked at or made fun of or questioned or looked at sideways because I do things differently and I speak my mind and I'm just unafraid to just be myself completely unashamed and authentically. It's hard to make it in a man's world.
Mm-hmm. Hence that song you were talking about earlier.
The Man, yeah.
What's that about?
It's about how if she were a man, no one would have anything to say about the fact that she dates all these people and writes songs about it. She would be considered cool or like an alpha type. And that's literally the chorus of the song. As she says, I'm so sick of running as fast as I can, wondering if I'd get there sooner or wondering if I would get there quicker if I was a man.
I feel like it's always been that way since we've been growing up, and probably longer than that. Is a man, if they have a lot of women, they're a player. But if a woman has,
but that's considered cool.
Yeah.
It's considered cool to be a player.
Yeah.
Because you're a man around a bunch of guys. That makes you cool in a sense. But a woman in that scenario, that makes her a whore. Yeah. That makes her a slut. So to the men, she's a whore. To the women, she's a slut. Because she has a completely normal romantic life. Completely normal.
But then on top of it, not only do you have to deal with that, but then you got to deal with the criticism that people give you on top of it, not from that point of
Perez
view,
Hilton,
but
this is coming at you. Her song Mean.
oh
That's
yeah,
what that's about, is critics. Specifically Perez Hilton.
yeah.
One day I'll be living in a big old city and all you're ever going to be is mean, because no matter what she did, the critics always have something negative to say, whether it's about her weight, her hair, who she's dating, what she's wearing, how she's wearing it, how late she stayed out, what she did at a club. Oh my God, an adult had an adult beverage.
But this newest one wasn't even about her doing anything. It was really about like the networks, the NFL network showing her a lot. How is that her fault? Like, why does she deserve to catch flack for that? Because she's popular and relevant?
I think it's because people find a way, are trying to find a way to stay relevant. I know who Jo Koy was, but that's just because I have a background knowing comedians. What the heck has he been doing? Nothing.
I don't even know how he got that gig, to be
Me
honest with
either.
you.
Probably because he said he was going to make a joke about Taylor.
Yeah, I feel
Guess what? It worked.
Yeah, it really did. Got people talking about it.
Yeah, because now you can't talk about Taylor without talking about what happened at the Golden Globes last weekend.
Okay, but do you think that a lot of people are defending her? Like, does it make it okay after the fact that people are like, hey, this actually wasn't cool because of this reason? Like, did it backfire in a way, is what I'm asking?
Oh, well, I mean, from a PR perspective,
Mm-hmm.
all press is good press.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah. Because I feel like the more controversial something is, the more people are going to want to talk about it. Hence why we're sitting here talking about it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to approach it from the conversation of who was relevant, who isn't, how did that go? Like,
Mhm.
because that's not really like my place here on this podcast. I always want to bring you something of value, and what can you really take away from us talking about the same thing that everybody else is talking about? I want to talk about the bullying aspect of it,
Oh shit.
or the fact of, you're not going to like this, of being a man, but the fact that like women cannot just exist on earth without men having to ruin it for us.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about how the human experience would be so much better if men could just act like the worms that they are.
So what is your thought then?
My thought is that, just using Taylor as an example here, a woman being successful can't just be that. It can't just be she's doing a great job, she's killing it. It doesn't matter how big someone gets in their career. If they're a woman, a man will always find a way to degrade her, make her beneath them, especially if you go into the comments of some of these like clippings of her being at the game. Just imagine a girlfriend or any of those other NFL players' spouses or girlfriends showing up to a game to support their person. Nobody cares. Nobody bats an eyelash. The people in the audience, they don't care. The cameras in the stadium, they don't care. But because it's someone who is a female, who has power and is successful and will outrank any level of success you stand her next to, that is a problem. And what's even more interesting, I work with a brand, love them. They're called Go Nanas. They recently just landed to be in Targets across the United States, which is phenomenal. It's a female-owned business. Two young women started this business when they were in college, and they make gluten-free banana bread, but it's kind of like allergen-friendly banana bread, and it is literally, this is not an ad, but it is literally the best banana bread I've ever had in my life, hands down. They recently went to what do you call those?
Like a trade show or conference?
Yeah. It's like an event where businesses, like small businesses, can go to look for investors and partners and such. And as two young, successful women, the majority of that industry is ran by old men. And they actually really did a good job this past week calling it out on their social media, because every person that came up to their booth had some type of like, is it ageist?
You could call it ageist and feminist.
Yeah, well, I would just specifically was looking for the exact term of that word when it comes to age. Judging them based off of their young age, judging them based off the fact that they were women. And I quote, one of the things that she had mentioned was, "Oh, what did you do? Develop this when you were in high school?" And she was like, no, I did this in college when I was working on my master's." I would have followed that with, "You piece of shit."
Yet if the shoe was on the other foot and it was a young man who was there who had started a business, it'd probably be met with, "Wow, you're so smart. How did you get this off the ground? Where did you get the capital from? You're so driven."
It's almost like this idea that men have that women are just too stupid to do anything on our own. And like that is something, like, personally, I'm married to a man, obviously, but like he does things sometimes that, like, for I have a perfect example. Yesterday morning we were leaving the house to go to the doctor. I left my coffee on the table inside. And so I turned around and said, "Oh, I need to grab my coffee." And so Matt turned around because he was closer to the door, and unlocked the front door and then proceeded to go inside to get my coffee. And I stopped him and I got angry. And I was like, I'm capable. But for some reason, he had decided in that moment I was not capable of walking inside to get the coffee that I just noticed I had forgotten. You didn't notice that.
No.
Then why were you going to get it?
I mean, I could talk about the flip side of it where men have been raised that we should be more chivalrous, that men need to do a better job on, but that we should be opening doors. We should be, laying down the jacket in the rain or providing our coat when it's cold outside. That was just my attempt to be like, I'll grab it for you so that you don't have to go inside. But at the same time, I get your argument. You are more than capable.
But that's not the only time that things like that happen, where
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
perfectly capable of doing something and on my way to go do it, and I get interjected in because my man has to step up and do it for me. And where I am very appreciative of things like opening the door for me and the things that you do, that doesn't mean that I'm not capable of doing those things. Like sometimes, and this is actually pretty funny, and I don't think any woman will agree with me on this. Sometimes I'll be doing the dishes and like he used to come up and like, I can do that.
Yeah.
My hands are in the sink, bro. I'm like elbow deep in dishes. I could do that. I'm literally doing it though.
Yeah.
I know that you're capable, but also clearly so am I. But anyway, so there's so many instances where women have to be made to feel less than because they're actually exerting themselves and they're being successful at it. Like women in successful roles is a bad thing. God, the patriarchy sucks.
So not only are they made to be less than in some areas just because they're a woman, it also happens when they just straight up like get their ideas stolen or get to be made copied of, to the point where like you can't even be original anymore as like an artist or a creator, especially when you're that high up.
Listen, I am not that high up. Like, I do not pretend that in the slightest. I can't even put original content out there without somebody else trying to just rip parts of you away. And I think, honestly, as women, that's one, if you're a woman and you do that to another woman, you are bad for business. Point blank, period. End of that discussion. But as women, I think that's why we support Taylor so much, because she is in a position where she has a voice, she has a position, and she's not afraid to use it. And she's not afraid to call that kind of shit out. And I honestly respect that of her. And the women who like talk trash about her, or any woman, I think that's coming from a place of, I don't have the courage to do that myself. So instead of just saying that, I'm going to point a finger and tell that woman that she's less than or she's bad. Like, I personally have friends who work in industries that most women would like clutch their pearls at and call someone really mean names over, but they're just women doing a job. And just because you wouldn't do that job doesn't mean that them doing it is bad. And I think that really just comes from an insecure place. And I think that that's kind of the bottom line, is whether it's a man or a woman doing it, it's coming from a place of, oh, I could never.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I haven't done that, so there's something wrong, or she cheated.
Well, good thing no one's asking you to.
I love when I'm scrolling Facebook, which is very rare, mind you, and I see comment sections underneath Taylor posts, because I'm in like Swift Nation and Taylor 2.0 and all these different Taylor Swift groups, because I genuinely support that human being, because she is one of a kind. Matt and I were having this conversation the other day. She is the most famous pop artist, musician, storyteller, writer of all time. And we got into the Beyonce Taylor Swift debate. And Beyonce's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not throwing shade on Beyonce, but she doesn't write all of her own music. She works with producers who she probably collaborates with, but she's not there doing it herself. Taylor Swift writes all of her own music, and she works with artists and producers to emphasize her work, not help her with her homework. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, we really did sit there for a while and try to brainstorm names like Stevie Nicks, Beyonce, Madonna, and like we just couldn't come up with somebody who was bigger. And that's a testament to Jo Koy using her name in that. Like, he could have picked anybody to kind of go after, but he was shooting for the top because he knew that would cause the biggest
1000% believe that was a calculated thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like a haha. It was a calculated career move. Because, like I said, how many of you know or knew who Jo Koy was before the Golden Globes happened the other day? I guarantee you that it's in the 90 percentile that most of you would say, I had no idea.
So one of the things that concerns me is that I feel like as more and more people are creators, this goes to more of like a micro conversation of what we're talking about, that coming out with original content or original ideas is going to get harder and harder the more people that there are that put things out. Now, you would think it would be the inverse. The more people that put things out, the more original ideas. But the reason why we have trends and trending audios is because most people are not original or are afraid to be their true selves. And so it almost takes away from the experience when, if you're scrolling, you just see the same thing over and over and over again. And we finally get an artist who's putting out completely original lyrics and songs, like you said, and the only thing that everybody wants to do is tear her down. I thought we wanted originality, especially from women, and have powerful female leaders. Then why are we working so hard to tear these people down?
It really just goes back to the fact that somebody out there is doing something that I want to do, but I'm too scared to do it. So, literally, the name of my podcast, my blog, my entity as a human being is Chronically Authentic. My aim, my vision, my goal is to show up and just be myself. You don't like me? That's okay. You don't have to. I probably don't like you either. And that's okay too. But the point is like, I think it's, and for me, I really struggled with this at first when I started putting content out there. One, I am going to touch on the fact that you were saying scrolling and seeing the same thing. I hate that.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest reasons why I got off of TikTok, because I got sick of seeing the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's not that funny after the third time you watch it. No, I have a caveat to that though. The only thing that was funny, no matter who did it, was the audio with the I got my edges back.
Oh, hell yeah. That one will never die.
And I'm going to put it in a bun.
It's almost like the social media churn and the content churn. It lasts like 3 or 4 days now, and it's just, you're tired of seeing it. That's why I feel like it's so important, like you were saying, to have an identity and express that as yourself and be chronically authentic to yourself. Because if you're just authentic to yourself, you don't need to follow trends. You don't need to see what anybody else is doing. You don't need to bite from anybody because you got your own thing going on. You have your own things to say.
You know what's really crazy to me is, like, when I hear you say that, and I start thinking about like all the things that I put out into social media, especially over the last year, especially on my blog or things that we've even talked about here on the podcast. And I think about how people show up on their stories or in their own content and they say the same things. Now, here's my thing. I don't mind if people reiterate or paraphrase. Give me the fucking credit. If you're going to shit on somebody, at least have the audacity to give the credit back where it started and stop trying to be original while also being completely fake and not yourself at all. Because I can't stress enough how uncomfortable it is to watch somebody not be themselves. It reads like a billboard lit up above Broadway.
You're not the only person that sees that.
No, I know
it's
I'm
obvious.
not. Yeah, it's totally obvious. Yeah. And that isn't this like a subtopic from the whole Taylor Swift thing, but like, why are people so afraid of people knowing who they are? Because we know that life isn't perfect. We know that it's 2024. We know that nobody has a perfect life. Like, but why are we so scared to be ourselves? Why does it sound better in our minds that I have to be somebody else or like somebody else in order for people to like me? Talking about this has made my eyes twitch. Like,
because it opens up vulnerabilities, and it opens up those places that people haven't really worked on truly, and makes them insecure about themselves. So if you have insecurities about yourself, you're more likely to hide those things from people because you don't want them to know the truth.
do you want to know the truth on that? Being vulnerable is what makes you relatable. Being vulnerable and sharing those things that you think that people are going to judge you over, guess what? They're judging you anyway. They're probably judging you 10 times harder because you just seem off. Or there's just something that's not, there's just something that's not right there. But when you open up and you start being vulnerable and you start sharing your experience with things, whether it be a struggle or anything, it doesn't matter. And vulnerability is vulnerability. If you start opening up and sharing those things, you go from being that person looks off to that person is relatable.
Yeah.
Our stories might be different, but damn, that person, like I understand that feeling.
So it makes sense why Taylor Swift, of all people, is this great storyteller and is this great role model and is this icon. It's because she's so relatable.
That is why she is where she is, because she is authentically herself. And where she may reinvent herself throughout the eras of her life, she still stays true to who she is. But at the end of the day, she's still a person and she still has feelings. And, you know, what has now become a meme, I see the first thing I saw that really kind of hurt me about this whole Golden Globes thing was I saw a woman sitting in a room full of people holding back tears because she was experiencing trauma. She was experiencing all of the times that someone had did just what Jo Koy did to her on that stage again.
Do you remember the Kanye incident?
That's what I'm saying. Do you remember what her face looked like when Kanye ran up on the stage? It was exactly how it looked right before she put that glass up to her face. Because how frustrating must it be that you can't just be in a room enjoying yourself without somebody having to take a dig at you or somebody having something to say about it? I mean, honestly, if it were me and I were Taylor, that is something that would make me retreat and be like the Beast from Beauty and the Beast and live in my scary castle and don't you dare come into the West Wing. Like, I would just hide.
It's one thing if it's like the roast of Taylor Swift or something like that, like it's set up like that, but she's just catching stray shots for no reason, really, you know?
Well, that's kind of the irony of it, is that it doesn't matter where she goes, it becomes that.
Yeah.
And I'm a monster on a hill. I think I get that line. Like,
at the top of the hill, and people are going to take shots upwards. They're not going to shoot down.
Yeah.
I feel like no matter where you're at on your journey, whether you're like just starting out to put yourself out there or you're talking with your friends and family and just like trying to be a better person, people are always going to find an excuse not to like you or to tear you down in some way because you're shining a light on their insecurities. And I felt that way when I was first getting sober, and people were discouraging me from doing that because they couldn't do it themselves. And I think the same thing applies here. People are always going to find a way to tear little pieces of you away. And ultimately, you just can't let them. You can't let them have any power over you. And I guarantee that, like you said, Taylor's going to write a song about it. She's going to do something to make herself be the bigger person, but also make sure her voice is heard. And that's what we all have to do. And if it takes this year being the year of us calling stuff out and being real about it, then we shouldn't be ashamed to do that, because we have our dignity at the end of the day. Like, we have to keep that intact.
I was actually talking to a friend today how my whole life, like I've talked to you guys about my past, my parents growing up with a narcissist. I've always had to suppress who I was as just a unique individual in this world to survive my life. And I often wonder if the Taylor that we know and see is that suppressed version, that she can't fully be herself because no matter where she goes or what she's doing, someone's always there jabbing at her. Because imagine if she just showed up, like, and this is just total, speculation, but like, imagine if that were the case. And imagine if she did show up fully 1,000% herself, she would have no place to escape. Like, what would escape look like? Because for me growing up, it was books. Mm-hmm. I could at least escape into books and like live in a distant place and not really focus on the things around me. And maybe that may be her music for her. That's the place that she escapes to. But do you think that she, like the Taylor that we all know and love, do you think that is all of her?
I doubt it, because of the reasons that you mentioned. And I think a lot of people in the spotlight are not able to be their true selves because they would just be criticized to the point where they wouldn't want to be in the public eye anymore. To be honest, it's so hard just as a regular, normal, everyday person to be yourself fully because you're afraid of being judged. Imagine being in the spotlight 24/7 and trying to be your true, authentic person. It reminds me of that Sean T story from this morning or yesterday when he was like, this year I'm just coming out and saying the things that I've been wanting to say for years. That man's been in the spotlight for 30 years and he hasn't been saying the things that he wants to say. Why?
Bro, same.
Why not?
Sean, I don't know if you're ever going to hear this, but same. Yeah. That is something, we talked about it last week, the no nonsense year. I have been so quiet about so many things that for no reason, out of fear of being pushed away, fear of judgment, fear of all these things. Those things are already happening. So me not saying anything only hurts myself. Mm-hmm. Because like Sean said in that story, it's my truth. You don't get to take that from me. I'm glad you said that because I really, truly do relate to that a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's also one of the biggest things about this podcast was it was a way to talk more in depth on those things and truly be my authentic self and not feel like I need to be filtered or hold back because somebody is watching. I don't give a fuck. Like at the end of the day, when this camera goes off and the mics aren't recording and I'm not showing up on social media, I don't care. I truly don't care. I don't care if someone doesn't like me. I don't care if someone thinks that something I said was stupid. I could not care any less.
Your thing is you always say you lay your head down at night and sleep just fine.
Yeah, I do. Well, except for the nights I have insomnia, but that's my brain. That's not because someone was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there is a way to, one, I'm very forward. Like I'm just a very direct person. I'm not going to change how I say something for anybody. I'm not going to package it pretty and change the tone of my voice just so you accept it well. That's on you. Like, I'm so sorry. Like obviously I'm not a mean person, but I'm also not going to sugarcoat shit for anybody. Mm-hmm. I did that for a really long time and I was miserable, but I was also really, really mean because I was so miserable. Ask anybody who knows me from my past. They'll tell you in one word what I was. I was a bitch. I was a bitch because not only was I direct, I was heartless about it. Mm-hmm. And I did not care. I still don't care, but I don't have to be an asshole about it.
now you're not heartless, you're heartful. Like you actually have some intention behind what you say, I feel like.
Yeah. That phrase, hurt people, I was really hurt. And I know that I did and said things to people that hurt them. And I'm sorry. Like I can be humble and humble myself, and I'm not perfect. So I don't hold myself to a standard of perfection. I can be better, but I can be better to myself too. And I can be better to myself by saying what's up. And that is something that I love that Taylor has been doing lately, is that she's been doing that. She's been saying it. You know, she hid away for a long time because I don't know why. She has her reasons, but I like that she's coming out of her shell and her cave, so to speak, and is calling it out. Like she was talking about the dads, Brads, and Chads having shit to say and booing her at a football game. Bro, get over yourself, okay? Like
it's Brads and Chads. I hadn't heard that line.
Yeah.
That's good though.
There is something very healing about standing on your own 2 feet and saying what you mean and meaning what you say and not filtering it for anybody. I was talking on my stories today about nutrition, and I literally said, these are things that are important to me. I'm not gonna package it pretty and serve it up nice on a silver platter. Like I am who I am, but my intention is to help, never to harm. And if people want to villainize me for that, well, I wear all black for a reason. Okay?
Add it to the list.
Yeah, add it to the list. But at the end of the day, like Matt said, I'm going to go lay in my Tempur-Pedic later tonight, snuggled up with my little schnoots and their nubbies, and I'm going to sleep just fine.
I'll be right there next to you, baby.
I'm going to sleep just fine tonight, whether you like me or not, whether you go text a friend that I said something shitty. I don't care. You are allowed to have an opinion of me. That doesn't make it right. And you don't have to agree with what I say. And that doesn't make me wrong. And I think more people need to hear that part. Disagreement is fine. You can disagree with anybody you want. That doesn't make the person you disagree with a bad person. It doesn't make the person who's saying it that you disagree with a bad person. But if it's offensive and it hurts you and you bring those things to that person and they basically tell you to go fuck yourself, and they don't show an ounce of like care for your feelings, that's a different story.
My prediction for this year is that you're going to see more and more people start to actually speak their mind and not shy away from it, because we have lost our individuality and we've been suppressed in the things that we can say. And you can bet, take it to the bank, that more people are going to be speaking out this year than in the past few years. And if they're not, and you notice that someone is being disingenuous or dishonest, evaluate what kind of value that they're giving to your life.
Yeah.
Evaluate what you're actually getting from that person, because are you getting the real story? Do you deserve to be hearing that all the time?
The number one thing, and I've said this so many times, the number one thing that people reach out to me and say is, I love how real you are. There is no greater compliment to me, because I felt so long that I was not my real self. I was the shell of what I thought people wanted to see of me or whatever. I never truly fully leaned into being my authentic self. And last year, I spent the entire year, well, honestly, it was 2021 and 2022 that I spent while he was gone. And then when he came back from deployment, really getting to know myself as a person and as an individual. And I spent all of that time completely alone. I was not really on social media looking at what other people were doing. I was posting about what I was doing on social media and like my fitness journey and just kind of getting started back into that. But I got so comfortable being myself. I got so comfortable being with myself and spending time with myself that I really truly learned that it doesn't matter. Like what somebody else says isn't going to come into my home and disrupt me unless I choose to let it. But that to me, I feel like is a headspace problem. It's an echo chamber in there at that point. And yeah, the no nonsense year is the real thing this year. And I don't think that it's just me that's feeling that vibe. I think a lot of people are. And good. I can't wait to hear some of the things people call out. And in fact, I'm going to call something out right here, right now.
Oh, gosh.
Jared Leto. Bro, sit down. Please. Why are we climbing the side of a skyscraper? For a song? Really? Are you guys that desperate at this point? Come back down to the ground.
Literally.
Yeah. I just think people are going to the extreme for attention when they don't have to. And I don't know, maybe I'm still butthurt about that contest that you won and they just like wrote him off.
We can save that for another time.
Sorry to open that wound for you.
Yeah, those wounds don't heal quickly.
At the end of the day, when all is said and done, you're the one that has to look in the mirror at yourself. And do you like the person that you see? Do you like the things that you say to other people? Do you need to tear somebody else down like Jo Koy did? As superficial of a dig as that was, to feel good about yourself or to be relevant in the world? Do you need to steal or copycat what somebody else is doing, thinking that it's going to get you where they are? The answer to all those things is no. You don't have to do any of those things. You should just show up as yourself and be happy with that.
Just be chronically authentic.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that everybody has something to love about them. And that was something that I was really working on last year was I may not like that person, but somebody out there loves that person and I should work harder to find out what makes that person lovable instead of breaking myself to find things that are terrible and worth hating. So yeah, I feel like we're all on a mission to better our lives. That's a good place to start. So yeah, that's where we're going to leave it today. So make sure you comment down below, come follow along, join the conversation anywhere you can. You can get me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Nikki.bunting. We're on our way to 500 subscriptions.
Wow.
On YouTube. Wow.
How cool is that?
What the heck, you guys? I just really appreciate all the support. I love having you here join the conversation with us. And yeah, you can catch me anywhere. Nikki.bunting, nikkibunting.com, my website. Come hang out over there too. Okay, bye.